You are listening to CFRO Community Radio Station. The upcoming show, Conscious Living Radio, is a program that explores frontiers of consciousness, spirituality, personal growth, emerging paradigms in psychology, health, science, and innovative philosophies that reflect commitment to the advancement of individual, social, and global transformation.
Tanuyap. Kuiget Iwans Kuyansna. Hi everybody, my name is Kuiget Iwans. I'm a member of the Squamish Nation and the Yagalanas clan of the Haida Nation. You're listening to Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We live, work, play, and broadcast from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
Songs of freedom, songs of love, songs that inspired us all to rise up, make the changes in this world, answering the call to protect this beautiful planet and the dignity of all. We regained our liberty as a people, self-governing, we choose to live in harmony, working together, thriving and free. The face of the world has really changed, liberated from fear and shame. We have reclaimed our God-given right to clean water, clean air, food and life. The light shone from the eyes of love. Your voice touches the hearts of all, inspiring the courage, freedom to act, freedom to choose, dream and dance, to do what's right, and take a chance on life. We've returned to growing food by hand, harvest the crops and care for the land, respect the animals and the trees and all our human family. We are connected like the grass's roots, friends with our neighbors, we speak the truth, barter and share locally with currency that's usury free. We cherish the earth, have abolished all toxins, our oceans are clean, and the whales and salmon rocking. Together humanity has planted the seeds that have given rebirth to a world of peace. The light shone from the eyes of love. Your voice touches the hearts of all, inspiring the courage, freedom to act, freedom to choose, dream and dance, to do what's right, and take a chance on life. Hey, 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 This life has been a journey to remember how to take the reins of reality, harness the power of now, awaken to the center, awaken to the dream. We are the source, creating it all in the greatest game in the universe. Yeah, the light shone from the eyes of love. Your voice touches the hearts of all, inspiring
and welcome to a special edition of Conscious Living here on the International Mother Earth Day 2025. Today I'm really excited, as I mentioned, it's a special edition where, we typically air every Wednesday, 6 p.m. in Vancouver on 100.5 CFRO FM Co-op Radio in Vancouver. And today we're pre-recording our program because it's Earth Day, which is really in alignment with our guest today. And it's something that I think is really important, where we acknowledge Earth Day one day a year, yet it's something that is every day of the year, which is really important. So today we've been doing a global broadcast from New York to Miami and other parts around the globe, talking about the power of Earth Day. And this year the theme of Earth Day is Our Power, Our Planet. And it's really important to acknowledge that the earth is what sustains us. And I ask you this question: what if the forest could speak and you knew how to listen? Well, our guest today, Ellen Dee Davidson, believes that the forest can do more than just speak to us. It can heal. In her new book, The Sacred Forest Bathing, she explains how reconnecting to the natural world can offer profound healing, intuitive insight, and spiritual awakening, all by reconnecting deeply with the natural world. Ellen has worked as a creative writing, piano, and elementary school teacher, and is the author of several children's books. And one, which is called The Wind, actually won the Nautilus Gold Award, and The Miracle Forest. She is a member of TreeSisters, Awakening Women, and the Earth Treasure Vase Global Healing Project, and she comes to us today from Bayside, California. She brings a unique voice to nature healing, so welcome to the program, Ellen Dee Davidson. Thank you for being here, Ellen. Great to see you.
Wonderful to be here on Earth Day.
Thank you for being here, and I'm really excited to have this conversation because this book really intrigues me. Sacred Forest Bathing, of which I've heard of forest bathing, and we know some people who talk to trees and works with that, and the healing power of ancient trees in wild places. But before we get started within the program, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your story and how you came to discover forest bathing and its healing potential and power.
Sure. When I first wandered off into the woods near my home, I live in far northern California where there are redwoods, and I had never heard forest bathing. All the Japanese studies, they call it Shinrin-yoku, weren't out yet or available to the public. But what happened was I had been meditating with a Lama in the Tibetan Buddhist Vajrayana tradition. And one day he told us all to follow the juice. And by that he meant do the things that bring joy and that you get excited about. No one had ever suggested anything like that to me. And it felt like this huge permission. So I started playing a little game with myself when I had a free day, and I'd wake up and say, what do I want to do? And it was go to the forest. And I had no idea that I was going to fall totally in love with the trees and heal myself and write a book about it. All that was in the future.
Beautiful. I love how you frame that, because one of my good friends and partners in work that we've done, and from his Buddhist teachings, the way that we roll is we call it following the golden thread. And again, the things that bring you joy, that feel natural, that you're drawn to. So I love that we have that connection in terms of these teachings. So with this in mind now, you were called to go to the forest. What happened there in terms of really getting to know these trees? Because like you say, you're blessed in Northern California with the redwoods as well.
Right. Well, I had already been called, but I just didn't recognize it. When I had moved to this house 32 years ago, there's an old growth redwood in my backyard. And I started having dreams of this tree. And the tree would teach me in my dreams about its energetic field, its radius. It would show me the mycelial network, and I'd never heard of that. The science about that wasn't around anywhere I came across it. And I, at that point, could not imagine a tree being sentient or communicating with me. It was so far out of my range of what could be real. But I was into dreams. So I wrote all my dreams down in my dream journal, and I interpreted them in a really Jungian way, where the tree represented a part of me that was old and full of nature. And now I don't think that's what it was. I think the tree was actually teaching me. So that happened. And then it was 17 years ago that I romped off to the woods. And how that came about, I was following the Jews, but I didn't really want to go by myself. And so my husband went sometimes, which was great. And my best friends, two of them, Annette and Allegra, went with me fairly often. But I wanted to go more. I wanted to go every single possible day I could go, and no one would go with me. So then I started going alone, which was a little bit scary. I've run into 6 mountain lions and redding elk and black bears and all kinds of things. But my love of being there outweighed the fear. And so while I was alone, I became really present. Because we humans love each other so much. We're so fascinated with each other that when we spend the day together, we'll chat and talk and catch up and do all the things people do, which is fun. It's a great day. But it's not the same thing as being alone out there, where I would tune in so deeply to all of my senses. So I'd hike about 4 miles, usually that was an average, and sit with trees. And the first tree that I developed a relationship with, I named Summer Tree, because you have to cross a creek to get there that becomes a raging river in the winter, so you can't get there. And I was with my friend Annette, and we sat down beneath this beautiful tree to have lunch. And Annette was a meditator too, so we decided we'd try to meditate under the tree and see if it made a difference, the way it did for Buddha, who meditated for 49 days under the Bodhi tree and became enlightened. We sat under that tree, and the words came into my head, "Come back." I looked all around. Annette, did you say something? No, she hadn't said something. I couldn't figure out. It sounded like someone speaking, a real voice. And I was like, this is really strange, but I think the tree just told me to come back. So we talked about that the whole way home and how impossible that was. And that was the beginning of an odyssey that's gone on for the next 17 years. And I thought I'd come back once and find out what the tree wanted. And I ended up coming back 3 times a week for the rest of that summer and every summer thereafter.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's incredible.
So it started out magically right away.
Well, you're certainly blessed to have that instantaneous kind of experience to hear the trees. And as one of our friends, Susan Leopold, said, if the plants are talking to you and you hear them, you better listen. All right. So in that, now you were talking about, going in alone and, the pleasure outweighed the fear and the benefit. Do you find that it works just as well if you go with groups, if people are silent and maybe choose a tree? How does that work? What's the best effect if people want to really, start going into the forest and connecting with the trees in their local forests?
Absolutely. Forest bathing isn't just taking a hike in the forest. It's a combination of mindfulness practices. And there's all sorts of different ones. Yoga in the forest is lovely, and meditating or just walking slowly and silently, paying attention to the breath. But it's that combination of being there and being mindful that creates the magic. So in a group, the trick is silence and, of course, unplugging from all electronic devices, including music, we want to hear the bird song in the creek and the rustle of the leaves in the breeze. And all of those sensory experiences bring us more into our embodied reality here on Earth versus modern life is a really disembodied experience, especially now with AI and our computers and how plugged in we are electronically. We sort of live up here in our minds a lot and become severed. Bodies pick up something like trillions of bits of information every second, and only a little small fraction, a few things come to consciousness. So we're missing out on a lot of reality. Being in nature is an invitation to come into the larger reality of our embodied experience.
Beautifully said. And, back to where you're talking about having the, being mindful when you're out there. One of the things I do love about your book is at the end of every chapter, you have your little forest guidance, which is that exercise to put it into practice, which I thought was a beautiful way to end each segment with that practice so that they can experience what you're talking about. Instead of just kind of keep reading it, it kind of prompts people to, take some sort of tangible action in what they're doing while they're out there. So I thought that was a really nice touch to the book because, you read a lot of books and it's generally just a chapter after chapter. This one really makes you stop and do something so that you can have some sort of an experience, because I always believe experience is the best teacher. And you put so many great practices in there that we can use to experience that of what you're talking about in the book. And you mentioned something earlier about, you didn't know trees were sentient. And the one thing I realized at one point too is, the interesting part that plants themselves have their own consciousness as part of life and part of this ecosystem and part of all of nature, the way everything's connected. And when we look at Earth Day and we look at the connectivity of all things, it's also about taking care of our planet and taking care of our trees. And, you talk about California and these ancient redwoods. The thing that comes to my mind is some of those images you used to see of when people would actually be, when they went down and started cutting them all down. Like these are old souls with so much wisdom and history embedded into their being that, it's painful to see what man has done in these great grand forests, and not just in California, but all over the world. In BC, we're blessed with, so much forest, and Canada is full of it, that it gets used as a commodity for paper and lumber and all those things. What do the trees tell you about what man has done to the planet and maybe what we need to be doing in terms of tangible action to get back on track so that we don't destroy our beautiful Mother Earth?
That is the best question. And they do give me visions. One of the things I've noticed being in the forest and being with the trees is the quality of my thoughts is different out there. So it will still sometimes feel like my own idea or imagination or vision, but I don't have those visions inside the house by myself. So one of the visions that I've seen a lot here in Northern California, we actually only have 5% of these old trees left. And of course, like all creatures, we want comfort. We want a home. And wood's a really nice building material. And there's reasons that the trees were cut so ruthlessly. It's not a matter of never, ever cutting a tree. It's a matter of the amount. And we've gone way overboard. So now we're at a point where we desperately need to both preserve and restore and plant more. So when I've been with the trees, sometimes I've seen forests just become more contiguous and green corridors between forests, connecting them so that animals and wildlife have a way to travel between, and the migration of plants can be more organic. I always get visions of sparkling, clear water. Part of it is the water is still clear out there, which is really noticeable after a storm, because when there's a storm where it's been logged, there's a lot of turbid runoff, brown water. But when we're in the old growth, which feels so magical and enchanted, and it feels fairy, like when we're there and it rains really hard, the water's still pretty crystal clear because all the plants absorb and filter that water and the whole system. So it works differently. And these forests are millions of years old. The trees can be 2,000 or 3,000 years old in the redwoods. They were here when the dinosaurs were romping around, which is hard to wrap our little human heads around, that they've been here for that much history. There's definitely a sense of presence. And being in a place that's intact gave me an experience of wholeness, of my own wholeness, in a way I'd never felt it before.
That's beautiful. And just the thought of the age of these trees, as you were talking about, is something that it's hard to compute in your mind and imagine that could be that old, which is incredible for me. So thank you for sharing that. So now, a couple of questions before we dig into a little bit of the meat, because I'm really curious about when you speak about the forest and forest bathing for healing. But you talked about running into animals, cougars and bears and elk and things. Mm-hmm. And when you're in that state in nature, did you notice, the behavior of the animals towards you being any different? You talked about, the fear, but the pleasure was greater. What was that experience like for you? And maybe if you could, put yourself in the place of the animals, what was their experience? Did they notice a difference versus being kind of an unconscious man going in there, not connecting?
One vivid experience is coming to mind as you're speaking, and it was when I was sitting by a creek playing my recorder, and 3 river otters came up almost right by my feet, by my toes. I pulled them out of the water because I was a little nervous they'd nibble on my toes. But they were entranced by the music and put on a little show for me, flipping and playing, and stayed for a long time. And there was definitely a relationship happening between us, nonverbal. I don't even know that I could translate it, but there was a communication of joy. Just the joy of being alive in all the beauty of the day and of nature. Now, when I've running into a mountain lion by myself is not my preference. But when it happened, it instantly pulled me right here, right now, effortlessly, no effort. I didn't have to turn off my monkey mind or anything like that. And it wasn't as scary as one would think. The animals aren't really after us. They're just living their lives. And so we looked at each other for a while, and the lion wasn't going to run. I took a few slow, careful steps back, and finally it kind of stalked off very proudly and kind of disdainfully, and I sat there shaking for a long time on that one. The black bears aren't scary at all. They just run off. So it depends who you run into. The rutting elk have been actually the scariest to run into because they're so protective of the does. Normally you can walk right by them, but when they're rutting, they must assign these little secondary alpha elks, and those will bugle. And then the huge alpha elk with the big rack of antlers comes charging up. And had one time lowered antlers at myself and the friend I was with and would not let us by. So we had to turn around and hike back the 8 miles that we'd already hiked at dusk, which involved thinking we were stuck to spend the night. But then my husband came with flashlights and rescued us. So that's a story. It's in the book. And but that's probably the most afraid I've ever been.
Wow. And see, and I wouldn't think that, and I wouldn't think that would be the animal to be most afraid of in the forest. But when you mention it, and they are huge animals, so it's something else to really consider. Well, thank you for sharing that story. And let's dive into some of the things you talk about in the book, because in the title, it's The Healing Power of Ancient Trees and Wild Places. Now, one of the things within your story in getting to know you as I was preparing for our program today was your struggle or your experience with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, because these are two things that are fairly commonplace now in today's, world of medical ailments. And I can relate to it as well because it's something my mother struggled with for many, many years. I'm curious if you can share with us some of the things that forest bathing helps with, and how, if somebody says, oh, wow, this sounds really interesting, what can they do, and how would they go about making the step towards forest bathing?
Okay. Let me break it down a little bit. My journey began when I had my first daughter, and she was really colicky, and she'd never let me sleep. And I sort of lost the ability to sleep. And then I had a cascade of symptoms and ended up with fibromyalgia. My muscles were spasmed. I couldn't turn my neck, and I was exhausted all the time. And I tried everything. I had tried hypnotherapy, regular therapy, some medications, meditation, yoga, you name it. I tried it, diet, juicing, and nothing had really worked. So I didn't have any hope when I went romping off to the woods that this was going to work. I like I said before, I hadn't heard of forest bathing. It was just what I wanted to do. But it actually did work. There's an atmosphere in the forest that is so peaceful and tranquilizing that it calmed my whole nervous system down. And that built upon itself. So the more I went, I started noticing, I can turn my neck. I slept well last night. And bit by bit, now I'm completely well. And what is known about forest bathing is that it speeds wound healing, lowers stress hormones like cortisol, improves mood, is good for kids with ADHD. It decreases depression. It lowers blood pressure, all kinds of effects. I think it makes your hair grow. Since I've been doing this, I have more hair. I'm 70 now, and I have more hair than I've ever had in my life. And I can't figure anything else that I did. So
Did you say you're 17 now?
No, not 17, 70.
Wow.
So,
you're doing great.
Yeah. I know, it's all the hiking. Honestly, being out there it's like the fountain of youth. So for listeners who also want this experience, I think it's important to start close to home with whatever is available. And that can be a park. If you can't leave the house, it can be house plants. I really feel it's important to develop an intimate relationship with nature, however we do. For some people, pets might be the best route in, but so many people have a bucket list now and go from place to place and check it off. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we're missing that depth of intimate connection. It's like meeting new people versus really getting to know your best friend or your lover. And there's a quality going back to the same places over and over and knowing what blooms when the mushrooms are up, seeing it in all moods and weather. Nothing's ever the same. Nature puts on a show in a different way every day. No two sunsets are the same. The same flower on the next day doesn't look the same. It's myriad beauty in an unimaginable number of forms, and that opens our hearts. Human beings are wired for beauty. And beauty is healing because it puts us in states of awe, wonder, and gratitude. And those are also proven to be healing. So finding relationship is easier if we do it closer to home. And where I think it should be everyone's birthright to have nature access. So where we have limited access, it's time to start planting trees and growing community gardens, and some cities are having urban tree planting programs. Right now, my friends at Archangel Ancient Tree Archive, who learned how to clone the old champion trees with the best genetics, are in Detroit, inner city Detroit, planting clones of ancient sequoias today on Earth Day. So that's exciting. But we need to create more beautiful natural places. It's been proven, they did a study in Baltimore, neighborhoods with more trees, crime decreases, and people in hospitals with windows that look at trees heal faster. So we evolved with trees and nature, and it's a mutually beneficial relationship. As I totally think that as we heal our environments, we will also be healing ourselves.
I love that connection and the way you relate to nature. And I always see the human being, sometimes when I look at our core beingness and having conversations with people, I talk about, us being the human animal, just like a bear, a cougar, whatever it may be. We're a mammal. We're a human animal just the same, and we're meant to work in some sort of synonymous way with nature. We're part of this equation. And as you look at all these great advancements in technology and community and cities, like you say, we're losing the green space. We're living in these concrete jungles. So it only makes sense to me from a common sense point of view, the importance of being out in nature. And again, I'm blessed. I live at the foot of a beautiful mountain just in the Fraser Valley, so I know what it's like to have nature and trees right there. And it's something I almost take for granted in many ways. Yet I can say when I get out of the city, there's just so much of a, so relaxing, so calming, so soothing. And when you get into the forest, that's a whole different ballgame. Now, when we talk about forest bathing specifically and trees, do you know if there's a difference between bathing and connecting with a spruce tree to a cedar tree? We've talked about the redwoods, there's birch. Do different trees have different characteristics for different kinds of healing?
I think so, absolutely. I have close here spruce forests, and sometimes I go there instead of the redwoods, and they spruce me up. They really do. There's a vivacious sort of energizing quality versus in the redwoods, it's like a soothing balm to my nervous system and a deeply calming, very yin. It's very, deep and dark and hidden and quiet. And the pines are effervescent and sort of joyful. Oaks give you that sturdy feeling. So absolutely, each type of forest and tree has a different spirit. And also, within the same tree species, I've noticed different redwoods have different, I'm going to call them personalities, but different personalities from each other. Some seem very approachable and interactive and want to seem to open up to communion, some sort of energetic transmissions and communication. And others seem like they're busy with their own tree things that are unfathomable to me, and they don't even want me bothering them. So they're not all the same. Sometimes I've spent whole days tromping around in the woods looking for a tree that I feel welcomed to sit with, and haven't even been able to find one. And other times, that's why I do go back often to the ones where I've established some relationship.
So it's like
But
you
even
need
then,
consent
in a
from the
different
tree
season.
too.
Yeah. But even then, in a different season at a different time, that same tree might not be available. It's sort of like getting to know people.
Makes sense. Well, I believe anything that is alive has its own consciousness, has its own connection and its own, like you say, personality. And so that makes sense to me. Sometimes I'd love to see them as a, crazy fun little cartoon, So let me ask you this. Do you find that when you go into the forest, is there an optimal time? I would imagine any time is better than no time. But do you find that there's a certain time that there's a tipping point to the benefit of being out there?
Well, the Japanese have gotten this down to a science, and they think you need about 2 to 3 hours for a good forest bathing session of immersion, and that the health benefits of that last for an entire month, 30 days, which that's not a lot of investment of time to go to the park once a month or find a place out in nature. And I don't think it's just forests that have this effect on us. They've done studies on blue spaces like oceans, rivers, lakes, and there are tons of health benefits there. I suspect there are for being in a desert, on a mountain, but each place will have a different effect on our consciousness and heal us in different ways.
I like that.
Yeah.
You just got me in a moment of silence as I'm thinking about the beauty of, when you said 3 hours, some people might say, wow, that's a long time. And for some people, 3 hours isn't a long time. Though for benefits to last 30 days, like you say, what a great return on the investment of time, which is, of course, our most valuable asset, that every being on this planet is the most valuable. Because when time runs out, well, the incarnation in this meat suit runs out, right? Versus, if our wallet runs out, we can always replenish that. So I see there's something here where you mention about the forest goddesses. What would you say about the forest goddesses in relation to the trees, and is there different benefits for men and women as the goddess?
Well, after at least 2,000 years of patriarchy right now, both men and women, we're all starved for the feminine yin qualities. We've really developed a lot of the rational, more masculine, go-get-em qualities, and that's for both men and women. So the yin qualities, and the forest does feel, sometimes individual trees will feel like grandfathers or pretty masculine to me, but forests as a whole do feel to have that nourishing, nurturing qualities we typically associate with the feminine or the more yin. And I think I might have lost part of your question there.
I think you pretty much answered it, just, in the way you related it to patriarchy and what's been happening in the world over history. And I think we're starting to see a shift in the world today into more of a matriarchy, and I'm a big supporter of that, because we've certainly, world of war and oppression and colonialism and all of those things needs much more of a softer touch, much more caring. So I think that you somewhat answered that in that sense. So I was just kind of curious how you looked at that from a almost from what's the word I'm looking for, an archetype perspective.
Oh, the goddesses. Okay.
Yes.
So the goddesses in cultures all around the world, forests have been associated, and trees, with goddess mythology. Daphne turns into a tree in Greek mythology, and we have the Kabbalah is a tree with different qualities. We have the tree of life, we have the tree of knowledge, and we have in the Norse mythology Yggdrasil, the tree that connects all the worlds, the African baobab tree that stores water, which is very precious there during droughts. And then we have personified goddesses that are forest goddesses, from Diana and Artemis and Freya, Flidais in the Celtic, and some whole forests were named after goddesses, like in France. I think it was France, maybe Belgium too. The Ardennes forest, I might be pronouncing that wrong. That's the name of a goddess. So they named the whole forest after a goddess. So there is some kind of global. There's a cherry tree goddess in Japan. So this isn't just one culture. It's pretty much all around the world. African, the Yoruba, I think, have a goddess named Aja. The fact that human beings all over the world came up with forest goddesses probably indicates that it's more people than just myself that are sensing that nurturing feminine, those qualities in the forest. And I know I personally always feel so sheltered in the forest. I imagine the little animals feel sheltered. I know not everyone feels that way because we have a lot of fairy tales that have taught us that the forest is dangerous, and a lot of fantasies and movies. And plus, we tend to be afraid of what's unfamiliar. But as we refamiliarize ourselves with these environments, I think most people will experience a sense of shelter and protection and peace. And again, feminine qualities of nurture that we're starved for, all of us, men and women. We undervalue the qualities that maybe we need the most, like the people who cook a good meal or take care of the children, the youngest children. Those are the lowest paid jobs, and they're so important. So revaluing, reprioritizing what has value to us, because we're not valuing the things that nourish us as much as maybe we would want to.
Well, getting back to nature, I think, is one of the most important things we can all do to get out of the rat race and what's happening in the world today. We get so busy being busy that we're human doings, not human beings, and we lose touch with nature. And I know I can relate to that at times in my life, and you get so busy being busy that when you actually take that time to, we like to go camping and get out in the forest, that everything kind of... And that's a lesson, because to me, everything's a pattern. So when you see that, it's about spending more time in nature. And I appreciate what you're sharing about the protection of the forest, because as you get in there, it even protects you from the sun on a hot day, as an example, because it's a lot cooler in the forest when it's 40 degrees outside.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it's very magical. And there's a lot of talk now about nervous system regulation. And nature is just a really fast way for us to come back into balance. Our bodies are always trying to create balance or homeostasis. That's just built into the system. But our bodies are picking up, I think I said this already, trillions of bits of information for every little bit that comes to consciousness. So when we're swimming in a sea of artificial light and electronics and all this 5G buzzy energy and tons of stimulation from heady conversations on email or we get disembodied. We get out of our bodies a little bit. And so just spending 5 minutes a day walking outside and consciously breathing and maybe taking shoes
Barefoot
off.
on the earth, yeah. That's one of my favorite
things. It can be
things.
life-changing.
Absolutely.
Right? And it doesn't have to be all day. It can be really short little mini breaks just to reground and recalibrate and say, yes, Mama Earth, here I am, alive.
Yeah, it's a great discharge of that frenetic energy that life can put on us. So, Ellen, we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we cover everything you want to be sure to share on our program today. And an interesting question that I see here is, do you have a favorite tree? And that being said, certain species of tree, or is it just a favorite tree that speaks to you? Or I'm curious what that looks like for you.
This is like trying to pick a favorite flower. It's hard. I think what happens is I have favorite trees at different times. And right now I'm so bonded and in love with the redwoods that for me it's the redwoods now. They're so iconic, and they being in their presence is like being in the presence of a guru. It really helps me get calm and centered in a way. But it's hard not to go crazy in love with the very fairy alders and birch and beech and the aspens and their dancing leaves. I mean, I don't know. It's hard not to fall in love with everybody. So.
I love it. So what haven't we quite covered in our time here together that you want to make sure that people know about the importance and the power of sacred forest bathing and its ability to heal?
I guess the one point I'd really like to get across is that when we humans open up and receive and really listen to the intelligence of nature, and some of that we can start with our own bodies because we're nature. But when we really do that, nature can respond with miraculous healing for ourselves and our world beyond our wildest imaginations. And I do have a real life example of that. I did write a children's book called The Miracle Forest, and it tells the true story of a sustainable community in Colombia that couldn't get anything to grow down in the savannas where only grass grows. And finally, in desperation, they tried tropical Caribbean pine trees. And then a miracle beyond their wildest expectations happened. Shaded in the understory of those pine trees, rainforests that biologists believe hadn't been seen in the area for maybe 30,000 years, spontaneously regenerated, brought back over 260 species, more potable water, and now they've planted 8 million trees. They're continuing on and expanding, and they plant the pines, and the rainforest comes back. The founder of the community, Paolo Lugari, the community's name is Gaviotas. The founder says this can be replicated anywhere in the tropics. And that's just an example of when we humans put our best foot forward and we just try and do a little bit to restore the environment, what the earth and the intelligence of the earth might do with that is so much vaster than we may imagine, which gives me tremendous hope for the issues we face right now with the climate and everything else going on, because it's not all up to us. We're a part of nature, but she's bigger than we are.
Wow.
So
I love that story. I think that's incredible, the power of planting a tree, and the difference it could make, and maybe not just, in Bolivia or in the tropics, but anywhere you can plant a tree. I think it's really important that we take care of our planet. It's International Mother Earth Day, and again, we celebrate it and recognize it kind of once a year, and I believe it needs to be every day that we consciously are aware of how we take care of our planet, how we take care of the plants, the animals, and each other, because it's our future, right? And I appreciate the work you're doing to share, the power of forest bathing. I think it's just an incredible way that we can get out into nature more for healing. I've always said I believe nature is the best pharmacy. Always start there, and to get out in the forest, to connect with nature, to sit in silence is such a powerful, powerful tool, and it's a natural tool. So Ellen, I thank you so much for your book, and I recommend anyone, if you're interested to learn more about Ellen's work, definitely check out her book, Sacred Forest Bathing. Ellen, I'm going to ask you to maybe list your websites and way people can get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more about your work and what you're doing. And as well, it is in the links in all our socials where this is actually streaming live right now. It's there. But if you can maybe let people know how they can get a hold of you and what they can do to move forward if they're interested in this kind of journey for themselves.
www.ellendeedavidson.com, and there's information on my website that where to get the books and how to contact me. So,
and the links are all down.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, they're all down below or to the left or to the right, wherever you're watching this program. You can get the links there on our website at consciouslivingradio.org. And again, Ellen, thank you for the work you're doing and being a steward of the trees and our beautiful planet that's sustaining our lives from now until eternity, for that matter. Let's hope. So let's take care of our planet and do the best that we can. Absolutely.
Amy, it was really fun to have a conversation with you. I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much, Ellen. It was a pleasure to meet you and have this conversation and share your wisdom. And I also want to thank the team here at Hubcast Studios, my partner in production, Michael Krause, who's with me every time we do these programs. I want to thank Unify for supporting and promoting what we're doing. And I just want to thank Michael, who's done a great job in stewarding Earth Day again 2 years in a row. You've been listening to Conscious Living as a special edition of our Earth Day program.
Celebration.
So, absolutely. So thank you, Michael, for the work you do as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. And,
absolutely. Here, let's share this. You've got your own. Awesome.
So I just wanted to, we had a lot of comments coming into our broadcast asking for the full playout of the history of Earth Day. So we're going to replay that now in its entirety, because we had split it up and people wanted to watch the whole thing that came in now. And I also want to extend a special thank you to you and Peter and Delan from Hubcast Studios. And we're truly blessed here on this piece of land that we live on, and the technology that surrounds us, and also the dedication of Hubcast Media and Hubcast International and Hubcast Network, and behind it Peter and his wife Delan, and their unwavering commitment towards creating a platform for conscious media can't get unnoticed. And so deeply grateful for them, and awesome job, and beautiful interview, and may we all be blessed by the beauty of what surrounds us.
Well, I know you had a beautiful experience with your tree recently, so I thought you must be relating to our conversation pretty good.
Yeah, I am. So it's really about how do we listen? how do we listen to Mother Earth, and how do we really not just hear her crying out, and we see it in the floods and the storms and the earthquakes and the fires where she's screaming out, but also in the little things, and at the same time also focus on the beauty of Mother Earth, because if we focus our energy on something negative, more negative energy will happen. And so we need to start focusing really on the beauty of the positive and be there for one another and recognize that. And I think that is probably the greatest challenge, but also our greatest opportunity. And we're surrounded by so much negativity and so much pressure right now, and anxiety, and not knowing where to go and where to turn to, and maybe we just need to take a little bit of a step back, not ignoring it, but also recognizing that whatever is going on right now is deliberately planned. Some in football, I think it's called flooding the zone, where you just create confusion and chaos everywhere. And if we take a step back and observe that for what it is, but then at the same time also connect with the plant people and the animal people and the stone people, and we're going to have an opportunity to live a life in greater harmony. And we're also blessed that we have a golden retriever here on the property, and we didn't let him into the broadcast today because he probably would have turned everything over. But he's kind of our messenger between the animal world and the human world, and big shout out to him as well, because he's always part of our daily lives, and he hasn't seen us now for 8 or 9 hours, so I think he's going to be super excited when we open up the door. And many blessings to all of you, and thank you for watching. Dearly, dearly grateful, and all the best to all of us.
You have been listening to Conscious Living Radio. For free show downloads, additional information about our guests and topics, or details about upcoming programs, check us out at consciousliving.radio.org.
Hey, Jim, did you know you can adopt a show for less than $20?
Really? So does that mean for $100 I could adopt a whole month?
Yeah, and if you're cheap, you could choose February and just pay $80.
Vancouver Cooperative Radio.
CFRO 100.5 FM.